What if the moments that break us open are the moments that bring us back to who we truly are?
In the Māori world, language is felt, not necessarily heard. And so when we go to different sacred places, we call it, even what's called the marae, the Māori greeting house, we don't go there to da 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 talk, 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 talk. It's actually to sit and breathe and feel.
Welcome to the Frequency Files. Thanks for joining us as we explore the vibrations, forms, and creations and mechanisms behind them that inform the nature of existence. Adele Hauwai-Faifua is the Director of Ataahua Art and the creator of RECONNECT Women's Retreat. She is on a mission to help burnt out women and caregivers to find deep rest and self love through messy, tactile art. By blending community, nature, well being activities, and creative expression, Adele builds safe village like environments where women can leave their daily responsibilities behind and remember who they are outside of the roles that they play. Adele, we've known each other for a few years, and it's just so awesome to be able to connect here today to have a deeper chat about your life, your amazing experiences, and the wisdom that you've gleaned and continue to glean. So, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks for the invite.
To get things rolling, can you share a little bit about your background and what are some of the key moments that have led you to today?
So my name is now legally Adele Hauwai-Faifua. I'm originally from New Zealand. I've been a bit of a yo-yo backwards and forwards, Australia, New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand. As some of my siblings keep reminding me, I'm one of those onto it ones that I can't keep still. And yeah, I'm always exploring life. That's just something that I've always noticed, whether you call it different or whether you just call just being authentic. But I've always had a curious mind for life. I was always
Mm,
one that would put up my hand at school and ask the teacher questions when a lot of the other friends just were too shy. I just wanted to just, fit into the, quiet norm of life. Whereas I'd just, if I had questions, if something was throbbing in my mind, I would put up my hand, I'd study that course, I'd go check out life, whatever it is, just a curious mind. I won't say, of course, that life has been easy, because it was when I was 9 that I was officially diagnosed with epilepsy. I still remember some of the flashbacks, I'll put it, of having my first seizure when I was 9 years old. And it was a journey to get officially diagnosed, to come to realize that sitting a 3 hour exam at school was not my norm because I'd go blank many times. And that's kind of how it is. Just to clarify, my type of epilepsy was more within the post-traumatic epilepsy impacted from a brain injury. And that wasn't exactly known because, you just think that things, seizures come out of nowhere and all. However, it took a few experiences of life to come to realize that part of my brain was damaged. And it's been a journey of life going through the notions of 23 years of epilepsy, struggling to do my first university degree because I just couldn't, my mind would go blank during 3 hour exams and all you get is an F for failure. Even at high school, I'd study and work my heart out, but my brain just wouldn't exactly retain retain what I'd studied. And so when it's this, I'll call it invisible experience, it can be hard to define. Well, you need to study hard when sometimes you're already doing that. And so it
mm.
was a hard thing to explain when back when I was younger, there wasn't exactly all the AI and technology and research and all to be able to even explore the human brain as such. So anyway, that was just some of my part of my journey above and beyond the highs and lows and experiences in life. And that's something that I had to learn. I've heard it too much. Give yourself credit, be kind to yourself, all of that. And that is well and good. I hear you loud and clear, a lot of the praise, but also remember it's just challenging when you're in the middle of giving like a TEDx talk and then you have a seizure type thing. It's like, oh, there's some things that you have to learn. What do I have control of? what don't I have control of? So, a bit of a summary of what I've been through. But yeah, today living here in
Yeah.
Australia, Brisbane, Australia, just both studying and also running a few businesses. Life is an adventure, and I've come to learn again. Take my own advice, be kind to myself, but self-care. Self-care has definitely become number one. Invest in ourselves in order to be able to invest in anything and anyone else.
I think you sort of put it lightly, having to learn it the hard way. You've met the edge of life literally a few times. We've had other people on the show who have had near-death experiences of various kinds and can see the blessings in disguise that were there, but it's a very challenging thing for the human self to go through and for the people around us, you know. What has that been like for you?
I know that I've touched base with more the mental health, epilepsy, neurological side of my life.
Mm,
It's just one of those, as I say from research, that 70% of disabilities challenges are invisible. It's not visible to the human eye, but it's real, it's there, it's legit.
yeah.
Sometimes, from what I used to hear when I was a teenager, oh, that's all drama. Oh, you're making it up. Oh, that's not real. However, like when I was 14, when I had one of my NDE, near-death experiences, I've had three of them throughout my life, all mostly impacted from having seizures. One of them was, as I'd mentioned before, when I was 14 and I was just swimming with my family at a public pool, and yes, I had a seizure while swimming and all. Now, I can't remember, when you're unconscious and all. Back then, I used to have about six tonic-clonic seizures a day. So altogether throughout my life, I've had over 2,000. So it wasn't just a now and again activity. Sometimes I'd come conscious and I'd be bleeding. I'd bit my tongue, or else I'd have grazes on my head. I hit my head. This time, I don't know how it was, but all it was coughing up water and all from a lifeguard and all. And I saw my family around me. Now, it's sometimes even I think about like what was it like before the seizure? Did I get warnings? It's been a common question. Oh, did you quickly tell someone?
Yeah.
But for me, about 80, 90% of my seizures, it was just straight out. No time to press a button, no time to, and that's quite common, respectfully saying, for people who have strokes to have their emergency tags. And that's what even my doctors tried to give me back then was a stroke button so I could push it whenever I had a seizure. But I was just one of those kind. It was just when I'm out, I'm out. And that time when I was 14 at a public pool, thank goodness there were people around. Yeah, I just went unconscious when I was just splashing around, and I can't remember anything during the seizure. I'm completely out. However, I do remember let's put it this way. In terms of like some of the pains and experiences that I had when I'm conscious, it was actually a very beautiful spiritual experience. I can't time how long it was for, but all I could see that I had this out of body experience. And I could see I was just floating above my own body, and I could see people down below that were trying to help me. Now, I was not in pain. I could not feel, and I didn't have to worry about life, what us humans need to deal with. And so I'll call it, quite enjoyed it. So I didn't have to, it was a very peaceful sanctuary kind of experience. Again, I can't time how long it was for, but yeah, I know it's interesting to say, but it was a very spiritual experience, just seeing myself. Yeah, it's not like I had much anxiety seeing myself. I was just very much, just noticing what was going around. However, I did feel this pull back. I do remember that as much as I was happy to kind of carry on with life wherever I was going in the spiritual realm, I could feel this pull back as though my time of life was not yet up. And so from that experience, yep, human life kicked in. I can't remember all the details because that's kind of how it is during after seizures. It's not just a straight wake up experience. It's a very from my own experiences, gradual, gradual, slow experience of coming conscious. However, I do remember coughing up water. I do remember coughing up water, and then I couldn't even hear sirens and people talking. I could briefly see them, but all my sound was gone. So a lot of senses, uh, at least for that time period, you know, turned off until coming conscious. And that's something that I remember having to raise awareness about. It's not just, yay, I'm awake. When you're having a seizure, it's a very slowly moving fingers, looking around. I want to say something, but the words aren't coming out. And so it's every episode, every person is different when recovering from seizures, even from near-death experiences. If it wasn't a seizure, from my own experience anyway, it was a slow, gradual wake up. Of course, I had a lot of medical support around, and being taken to hospital, etc. Which, call it what you want. I've done my rounds of hospitals and emergency, clinics and doctors, and then about a few hours later, I got discharged after each seizure or episode. And so it even got to the extent where, I'll be honest, that I just didn't want to, sometimes I'll call it, waste my time because it's not like I spent a week there, even if I had other injuries inflicted from seizures. It was classed as one of those, well, it happens often, so it's not classed as that urgent, type of thing. And, I know that people, like with the roughly 60 million people around the world in our epilepsy community, that there can be, a lot of discrimination, when it could be just classed as a medical condition, yet we have other impacts from it, not just physical, like when I bit my tongues, grazed myself. I've still got some of my scars on my wrist from my first seizure when I broke my glass while holding a glass, and yeah, it cut into my wrist. And also I've still got my scars from my first surgery from it. But as we hear in life, be proud of our scars. Be proud we are who we are as a makeup of it. Even with what I shared, one of my NDEs, I still sometimes question, why didn't I go? Why? What am I doing here? With all the commotion of life, of everything. I said, it was peaceful over there. Why didn't I go? There must be a purpose why I'm still here, whether it be to share my own story, whether it be to make a difference. I won't deny that empathy, being an empath. I kind of more learned this from close family members that yes, you're an empath, have big emotions and all. And that's kind of how it came when going through my own journeys, even through the near-death experiences, that learning to have compassion for others, but as I said before, about self-care, especially for myself. Invest in me in order to invest in others. So that was one of my episodes, one of my NDE episodes, and I even shared that when I gave a TEDx talk back in 2020, about my NDE in a bit more details. Of course, life has changed a little bit as it led up to my brain surgery, and that's another journey in itself.
Yeah, wow. How did your perception of reality change when you really experienced being on the other side? And also the overlay of Maori culture, and where does epilepsy or the seizure phenomena sit within that?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Definitely, yeah. So with my what's called whakapapa family history, spirituality is not in our Māori culture. It's not necessarily classed as a religious form. It's actually part of our what we call whakapapa identity. We've all very much been connected to spirituality. We believe that we all have spirits, we all have bodies, and to come together that yes, as I mentioned in my NDE, that my spirit, what we call my wairua, wairua was just reflecting on. And I know I'm mentioning a few Māori terms here, but we also believe in what's called kaitiaki, guardian. Guardian, we believe that there are spiritual guardians of our ancestors, a close family member that has passed away already. That is our kaitiaki, our guardian. And yes, when I had my NDE, I had the spiritual experience of at that time, my Nana, just giving me the nudge that my time is not yet up. And yeah, it's interesting. It's not like I told her anything. It's not like you don't even need to text or call or even verbally say something. They know. Communication, I'll say, is a whole new world, a whole new realm in the spirit world. Well, during my NDE, is it even only for people that are experiencing NDEs? I'll obviously say no. Even like when I've had my seizure experiences, or even non-seizure experiences, the times when I felt at different times helpless when I was coming conscious from seizures, I could feel the presence, kaitaki, just something protecting me. Some people call it auras, some people call it, energy, that type of thing. But I could just feel that something was protecting me during the time so that I could just ground myself, recover from every seizure. Going back to your question in terms of that experience, I would just say that not everything has wording. In Te Ao Māori, in the Māori world, language is felt, not necessarily heard. And so when we go to different sacred places, we call it, even what's called the marae, the Māori greeting house, we don't go there to da 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 talk, 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 talk. It's actually to sit and breathe and feel. Language is more non-verbal than it is verbal. And yeah, so it's another energy, spiritual realm. I know there's, many other words in Te Ao Māori that explain exactly that. But again, I go back to what I mentioned before, language is felt, not heard. One of my areas that I learned even to help me to communicate was what's called reo rotorota sign language. Now, when it comes to I'll just give a little bit of iteration on that. One, my grandmother, my dad's mother was Ture Māori. She was Māori deaf herself. Now, did that stop her from being able to communicate, to do Māori culture dancing, kapahaka, to be able to, have, her different things? No, not at all. Again, communication. And I myself, when I was going through the journey of seizures, of my brain injury, of, getting frustrated about not passing exams and all, I switched from just visual learning, which is quite a common phase when you're going through the school systems. Here's a book, here's papers, here's a pen, here's paper. Now today it's, hey Google, all these other things. However, myself, and call it unique or not, but I remember when I set a learning exam, and I found out that I'm more tactile audio learner. Rather than just reading with my eyes, I process much better with the other side of my brain where I could hear and do. So therefore, I used to sign my exam answers and my assignments in videos that I used to watch myself, all my notes, because these thick uni books, thick, how many papers that you just highlight but never look at again, all these studies that you only went through how much percent of the readings. Anyway, I used to record myself or else audio or else even do sign language. I'd translate the notes into sign language, and I used to watch myself in sign language, and that's how I retained a lot of my information. And so when I set the exams, I would pass it because I learned to utilize different parts of my brain. And or if only like today, like medical doctors, neurologists could have explained that then, but I had to more navigate my own way because, as I mentioned earlier, I've always had a curious mind for life. And yes, we all have bumpers. We all come to these different experiences where sometimes you got to reverse and try another way and reverse and try another way. And that was one strategy, one way that I learnt to like try and get through my university studies. And even today, when I'm, running a few businesses now and all, it's like learning my own strategies, my own learning cues, and I'm still a hands-on doer type person. Now it's kind of like these days with AI, so whew, Oh, okay. I will mention though, saying that though, and I know this is a little bit going around your question before, but still, I'll share that. I know some of us try to avoid what's new, what's AI and tech, and all these electric cars and all these things. But I've also learned in life that, especially post surgery and being seizure free now, myself for 13 years, to like embrace life, learn about it, and come to sift out, pull out what's for me, what's beneficial, anything else, just let it go. My takeaways is definitely to um, live each day as though it's your last, because I never know when I'm going to have another seizure. Even though I've been seizure free for 13 years, I still get little nudges, little warnings, and it doesn't take like just someone with epilepsy or any kind of health condition, but to just, we never know when anything can happen in life, so live each day as though it is your last and enjoy it. That's it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, absolutely. And that's so inspiring. And I love that you're a testament to neuroplasticity and finding new ways that are empowering, that work for you, that are, a strengths-based orientation.
To be honest, that just reminds me of like what I've learned when studying business as well. That, look, we all have our strengths, but sometimes we do ourselves hard with what we're not good at. We can, as that, what we hear often, self-critic, can be hard on ourselves. And I know I'm taking my own advice here. I can go and get myself a box of chocolates and spoil myself for one day. But then, sometimes I'm just all go, go, go with trying to meet deadlines and all that, sleep. So you've got to try and get into that good self-care routine. Being kind to yourself, I'll just say, is more like a consistent, ongoing thing, not just once a month thing, not just spontaneous here and there when you feel like burnout is coming. And yeah, we all experience it, especially with what the world demands of us these days,
Yeah.
society and everything. So definitely what I thought was different when I was younger, because no, that word different, I heard that a lot when I was growing up. You're different. You're different. And I used to not enjoy that word different, because you just want to be normal. Now define normal.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Define different, define normal, even with our siblings, it's a very, yeah, type thing. However, like what I said, curious mind is that I came to realize after, especially even like going through my medical experiences, health experiences, and coming to realize that it's okay, having, I'll call it like what I'm running in one of my businesses, neurodivergent thinking, out of the box thinking. That's okay. And, even though, and this is not to people please or to say, wow, where do you get your ideas from? What I think is like normal pace could be sprinting for someone else. And,
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay, let's step back and realize that my pace of life, we're all in our own journeys, our own paces of life, to focus on me and just compare myself to me.
Yeah, being
Myself to
your own
who I
way.
was. That's it. It's my own little
Yeah.
rule. And yet it takes time and experience to learn that.
Yeah, 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 totally. You mentioned before that you decided to have brain surgery. That's a pretty massive choice to take. There might be risks that come with those sorts of choices. You've chosen that path, and as you mentioned, you've been seizure free for 13 years. So what was that journey to making that choice and going through an experience like that?
Well, I first like to raise awareness that, like, for people, even in the TBI community, traumatic brain injury, that brain injury is not for everyone. You need to, one, qualify for it. It's not optional.
Mm.
You need to qualify for it. And so normally, because of the high risks of your brain is like your heart, your heart is like your brain, and they're some of the primary functions of our body. And so therefore, because doctors, neurologists had exhausted all options, medications, one, two, three, counseling, mindfulness, you name it, but I still had ongoing seizures. And especially with how it was impacting my life, not only physically, sometimes, as I briefly mentioned before, and just to raise awareness that, I'd, have a number of blood coming out of me, but in tongues, or else even when I had sleeping nocturnal seizures, I'd have
Yeah.
raised arms, I'd whack walls a lot. And
Yeah.
it's not just the physical condition, but even out in public, it causes, even people are like, when coming out of my seizures, people are having emotional seizures, um,
Yep.
attention of it. And so even that is
Yeah.
tricky coming out of a seizure because it's not like we deliberately want public attention, and that can cause such challenges like social anxiety, social
Yeah.
phobia, even just to leave
Yeah.
home because we never know that we could drop, when walking down the street or, anytime, anywhere. We don't exactly choose, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, it's on this day, this time. And I'll be honest and say,
Yeah.
some of the doctors would ask, well, how many seizures do you have? And what days do you normally have? And I said, how long is a piece of string? I don't know. It's one of those unscheduled experiences of life that sometimes I felt like a parrot, I'll be honest, and say that I was just repeating myself to the next stranger person, stranger doctor. And I'll just say that sometimes, even when I was like, a bit younger in my teens and 20s, that I'll be rebellious. People would call ambulances and all, and I was gone before they arrived. I just did not want to be the center
Yeah.
of attention. And that sounds
Yeah.
rebellious, I get that, but that's kind of like part of the build-up of, going through the notions of mentally, emotionally, education, employment,
Yeah. Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
It impacts everything in your life. It's not just a few seconds or a few minutes of shaking, of going unconscious. That's it. No,
Yep.
this is it. Sometimes I even class that the physical part of being unconscious was more the easier part, if you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes, like, even I remember an incident that happened at work when I used to work at Queensland Motorways, where I was coming out of a seizure and I had people around me and I had water running on me. I had no idea how how somehow my arm was underwater and I couldn't feel it for nothing. But an hour later, I could start to feel pain. And then when I could start to talk, and they were explaining that I'd spilt my hot drink during a seizure on myself while I was making myself a hot drink just during my break. And all I could just remember, was seizures. And look, bear with me that I know that there are some amazing people out there. All they want to do is care. And so therefore staff, team members, they were checking up on me. Are you okay? Yep, you've got sick leave and all this stuff. And but just recovering from these experiences, and yes, pain does eventually come. It may not be immediately coming out from a seizure, but the pain, sometimes respectfully saying, I wish, can you just stay pain-free and just heal? But that's just not how the human body works. At times it would, it's everything that comes with, the impacts of having a seizure. And so I got burnt that week. I had to recover and have bandages, you name it, ice packs, you name it, and even had to take a few days off work. And so this is what I mean by like the before and the aftermaths of having a seizure. It could mean even either if you don't really have compassionate employers, staff members, some people with epilepsy have been let go because of just, having seizures, having epilepsy. And it's a really unfortunate thing that people have to like try and hide it from their CVs, things like that. And so that's personally one reason why I've gone down the self-employment social entrepreneur pathway is because my own lived experience, the flexibility, if both sides, whether it be working for others or us working for myself, has its highs and lows challenges. Journey now, the build-up surgery, it was more suggested from my neurologist because of the ongoing seizures I was having where no meds worked, nothing worked. And so therefore I had to go through about 4 years of ongoing tests. And this is from neuropsychology test, neuropsychiatry test, vision test, hearing test. EEGs, for those that know what they are, it's putting these things, glue, things on your head and yeah, attached to a machine, and just even just the interesting experience of seeing your brain activities on machine. Doctors being able to trace where in my brain that the seizures were coming from. I won't say it was exactly a peaceful, joyful experience because sometimes they wanted to sleep deprive you to purposely have seizures. So, going through the notions, there was just times where, look, and especially when I was having appointments with the neurosurgeon teams and them giving me debriefs once I qualify for the surgery, because only about 5% of our communities qualify for brain surgeries. Most people, it's not encouraged because of the high risks involved. So it's not for everyone type mode. However, when I got to the extent of qualifying for the surgery, of course, it's still a choice. Yeah, it was still optional to either carry on with epilepsy life or take that risk. So when I was speaking to the panel, and they were telling me the risks of surgery, of having strokes, paralysis, losing vision, losing hearing, being in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. They were explaining the details, and as daunting as it was to just even hear that, to receive the notes and the risks involved with a brain surgery, I said, no, change my mind. No, no, no. But then having more and more seizures, it was a very middle road of, oh, I just want that surgery just to get it over and done with and see what it is. But then, oh, the risks, and it was like being stuck in both sides of, yeah, can I just skip the surgery and just be seizure free, hopefully, type thing. Also, in saying that, though, I'll also include that, like the success rate. Everyone is different, and the doctors explained that at least here in Australia, the success rate of the surgery was around about 60 to 70%. Now, success of the surgery is not just, yay, seizure free. It could mean reduced seizures. It could mean, no changes. It's the same pre-surgery, it's the same post-surgery. Or it could be seizure free. So there's all these things. Sometimes, of course, as I'd mentioned before, there's even those that have had the risk of passing away because you're dealing with your brain here. And so there's all these, should I not? Yes, no, in between. But every time I personally had my seizures, especially when I got injured from them, that just really pulled me the other way, that I just have to do this. And it was very much a middle ground. And straight up, I even had to start seeing a psychologist prior to the surgery, because when I had my dates set for me, this is more feelings than just like deadlines for an exam or an assignment due. This was surgery. This was what was explained, for the details from the neurosurgeon team, all the steps that I had to take, from when to take medications to showering to shaving my hair off to the works. And I was that close a week before. I don't want to do it. I was that close. I was that distraught that this might be my last week. I might actually officially, who knows what can happen. And just even reflecting on some of my past NDEs, well, they weren't exactly planned, like the surgery, so they were very, spontaneous, real though. But this, the fact that I'd gone through my tests, even going seeing a psychologist and asking, can I please just remove all the anxiety and the fear and even all the, if you want to call it, hypervigilance, thinking about all the risks and what's it like going under the knife and everything about it's like in detail type thing. But I just really had to learn and practice a lot of, I was reminded about a lot of karakia, if you want to call it. I know this is talking about religious things, but prayers. Sometimes, and this is something that I had learnt for years, especially with my brain injury, with my neurological challenges, and I learnt this in research too. Your heart has neurons in it too. Your heart has thoughts as well as emotions. And so I learned to really utilize my heart for everything. That saying, your heart is 99% right. Sometimes our own minds can do da, 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 okay, yes and no and what and where and and your one's going to be whew, all over the place. But that good old saying, trust your heart, trust your gut instincts, and that's what my heart was telling me, to proceed with the surgery, that I will be safe, I will be protected. So that's what I was listening to. Sometimes it takes an art and a skill in itself to sometimes switch your brain off. I'll put it that way, to listen to your heart, because they can contradict quite often. I'm sure all of us can testify of it, not just because of epilepsy and, other challenges, but because of life. Should I not? Or maybe, all these different experiences in life. But I went ahead anyway on the 6th of January 2013, followed my heart and just followed all the professional guidance. It took a few little jabs to actually get me to sleep, but 4 hours later, um, I'll just say it was a very spiritual journey in itself. I could feel, how can I say, it's almost like feeling my NDE spiritual experiences again, because I'll just say that the veil is thin. When you have close encounters of life, when your life is on the edge, I'll just say, like how it was for me undergoing this brain surgery, it was basically a life or death experience. Like, could be my last few hours of life there. However, proceeding through getting put to sleep, I don't fully know, but I do know what happened during roughly the 4 hours of brain surgery. However, all I could slowly remember was just hearing the beep, beep, beep. And I was in the intensive care unit with the team of emergency staff members. And so they were just checking my blood levels, my breath. I couldn't look, I couldn't do anything. I could just hear, that's it. It took a bit of time to even just the simple things that we tend to take for granted when we are well, just to be able to look left and right, to be able to wriggle your toes, to be able to, and even I came to learn, especially later during my recovery, the amount of energy that it takes just to sit up, you know, stomach muscles, even just to, you can turn, you've got all the wires and everything attached, and it hurts. Every little thing. And it's, look, 1 hour, one day, 1 week later, um, post-surgery, I was actually back up on my feet by about day 2, so much that they discharged me early by day 4 and all. And yep, rebellious me, I'll call it rebellious. I was out shopping the next day. I had shaved hair back then and I had my stitches all down there. Well, I just flipped my hair over and now look, what got me to do that? Having seizures, as I learnt from, seeing a lot of neurologists, neurosurgeons, that it's like basically the amount of energy that seizures take out of you, whether it be for a few seconds or a few minutes, it's like sprinting for an hour. That's how much energy it can drain out of you. And sometimes just even if you just sat there, lied down, had a seizure, you just wonder, where did your energy go? Now, post-surgery, I was still seizure free after a week. And I was so used to having, like what I mentioned earlier, roughly 2 to 4 seizures a week. But the amount of energy that was being stored because I wasn't having them. It's like I had a lot of energy to burn because, yes, maybe the seizures have, had ceased by then, but it's like I'm full of energy. I need to use it somehow because my brain was so used to speeding up, 100 times faster than going back to normality. And that's just the patterns of seizures, is speeding up, hypervigilance, and, everyone's seizures are different, I understand. But because I wasn't having that anymore, it's like energy to burn. And so that's how it started to be. I'll say it's like being born again. Being born again, where even a year later, when I was 12 months seizure free, I got the green light from the neurologist to start driving. Start driving again. And that's like, oof, it's like getting your learner's license. Being able to turn a key on, there's lots of anxiety because driving is driving. So even just to be able to do 5 minutes around the block with a friend beside me, yay, I didn't have a seizure. And I will say that as much as it's a interesting scenario, learned behaviors also used to having seizures, so it felt strange not to have them. You can say, yay, no seizures, but you're so used to living life on the edge that, okay, week two, okay, 1 month, surely I would have had one by now. Okay, this is different. And so 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. And so I was living life on the edge. I said, okay, don't get my hopes up too much because we never know. And then, but I still haven't had one. And so it's just really having to get used to like what you said before, neuroplasticity, the norms. Now, I will say just straight after the surgery, I felt a pull, a pull in my brain. They'd removed a third of my brain, just to let you know. And so it felt like a ditch. Something was removed, which is true.
Wow.
And so I could feel it, but like what you're saying about neurosurgery and neuroplasticity, that just like any plant, if to remove one of the branches, a new one grows. And so that's how it's been for me, is that since the 6th of January 2013, my young brain has grown into my old. And so it's been a mix of life. And the doctors, neurosurgeons, they didn't know this because everyone's outcomes are different, but it unblocked a lot of my childhood memories that I had trouble remembering. I could remember my old addresses, my directions to school, my subjects, a lot of my studies that I failed exams in at university, a lot of it got retained. A lot of it has been restored. And I said, wow, where did you go? Where was it stored up there? And I didn't even know that could happen. But yeah, it's interesting. As we know, the brain is a whole world in itself. But that's been my journey the past, roughly 13, 14 years post-surgery. It's been a new brain growing into an older brain. And so some of me just wants to go out and party and dance but I'm coming to realize that, I don't exactly have the teen body that I used to. So I've got to deal with the young and the old and the in-between. Just to be overall kind. And so that's partly why I go to the gym now, to race off my brain neurons wanting to just do anything and everything. Slow down, brain. Let's come back to reality. Be grateful, definitely give thanks. And that's also part again with my, empath background and also using my heart a lot to guide me. And it still is, don't get me wrong, it still is my own brain in itself, my heart, my ngākau. But of course, it's taught me to have compassion, to be able to pay it forward, and especially more to be able to run programs, projects within the social enterprise space to pay it forward. So my
Mm,
journey of brain surgery, it's, yeah, just taking each day as it comes.
yeah, amazing. Wow. Wow. Mm. And what does that look like now? Because you mentioned self-employment was something that called to you for many different reasons, and now that's the space you're finding yourself in. What does that look like?
Yeah. Look, as I've mentioned before, curiosity.
Mm,
Curiosity has always been a thing, even when I had epilepsy. I ran my first little business when I was 11. I called my little business the Miss Uptown Popcorn Girl, and I used to make caramel popcorns and sell 50 of them a week. I'd just go up to people's homes, look cute, and sell caramel popcorn for $1 each. And back then, that was lots of money. I had no bills to pay, and whatever. And so I've always had a curious mind for life, and we don't always focus it on a lot, but there's a lot of high intelligent, very clever people amongst our neurodivergent communities. I'll just say, even in the epilepsy world, mental health, and to be able to focus on our strengths. That's always been me, curious for life. Even being able to see this in my son. Even though he was officially diagnosed with ADHD last year, I've always noticed similar different traits with him, having a curious mind. And so, yeah, being able to set up his own IT business. I just learned a lot of these things along the way I've always wanted to go down this entrepreneurial space and all, but sometimes life has its setbacks, and what we get taught at schools, taught in society, only to work for other people. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know until, you step out of that comfort zone and think, wow, this is a whole new world, whether it be like for me, my journey post surgery, what is life like to be able to drive now, and even, different opportunities that I've received. For myself, currently I run my art business, and also even with my son, we run a technology business. We're just currently developing innovation in the mental health space and all. And it takes, I'll say, lived experience. You can have a PhD, you can have a master's degree, but nothing will ever override lived experience. Not everything is visible to the human eye, but it's there. It's real, it's legit. And sometimes that's all that people like within different communities want to know, is that what they're experiencing is legit, it's real, it's not something to just push away. And sometimes what I heard when I was younger, get over it type thing. It's just one of those things that we just need to, what I call, even in our Māori culture, to build our little kite, our kit of, safety resources, or having good close people to talk to, grounding activities for mental health. To be able to help you to, overall be kind to ourselves, self-invest daily so that you can pay it forward in whatever way that looks like, with your own skills, your own intelligence, and to recognize and, use your intelligence, whatever that means and looks like. Because there's, honestly, I testify, even not just because my neuropsychology test showed me that I've got very high IQs in some areas, but use it to your advantage, because it's helped me a lot in my challenges. Just investing in my strengths to help me, because we all go through them, bumpers and all, but just to, as I say, fall forward, just keep trying again.
Yeah, there's so much to say, in the seizure world, and there's so many rabbit holes we could go down there. I mean, 1 in 26 people have the label of epilepsy. I have mixed feelings about labels. And I know some people find identity in that. I guess what I want to say is, like, in my personal experience, the lack of inclusion of allied perspectives is profoundly underwhelming and a huge opportunity space.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes, sometimes I look at it, because even working in the NDIS space myself here in Australia, sometimes it can be a very tick box experience. I share this all with aroha and respect, but like from a te ao Māori perspective, and lots of Indigenous communities, that Western medicines, big pharma medicines, it took, unfortunately, suppression of a lot of our natural, indigenous rongoa medicines, plant medicines. They had banned it by law back in the 1900s in New Zealand, and they introduced the big pharmacs about 5 years later. And New Zealand was one of the last countries for that to happen. Now, I
Right.
know that these days, we're so fixated on systems, and this is how Ministry of Health works, and this is how the government works. However, stepping back before, like what we call rongoa, natural medicines, we still, within our practices, and other cultures too, we believe in such healings like matariki at the middle of the year, where, reading the stars, being able to, deal with like energies from above, spiritual realms, things like that. So it's still there. It's just a lot of it is, I'll just say, masked. In saying that, though, I know I brought up before that, it was just noticed that I was like a different person. And sometimes I even ask myself, am I different? But then again, what's normal? What I mean by different is that I wasn't, and it takes a lot of quiet courage here and there to be ourselves, our different selves, whatever that means. It could mean a few extra looks, not just say when you have a seizure, but even how you look at your condition, is that, because whatever it is, we're not after self-pity. We're not after attention seeking. We're not after, being praised by others and all. We are uniquely ourselves. And so, it takes a bit of time to come to realize, especially after having seizures again and again. Um, Overall, yes, in society, this is what it's called, but how do I see life? How do I see myself? What's my own, pathway? And also, just, with myself, post-surgery, for example, do I still class myself as having epilepsy? All I can say is that it's there, but looking at life and definitely more looking at overall more healing modalities, because I was very strong and have been strong since even in New Zealand I was running a charitable trust, holistic holistic therapy. We're promoting holistic everything from being able to go on retreat camps, connecting with what we call papatūānuku, with land, with nature, through to everything to being able to breathe, to heart, to be able to just connect with life. And that is just part of as well as medicines, natural medicines with plants. And that was running a charity like that for 5 years before returning back to Australia. Yeah, that was my way post surgery. Right. After years of that, 1, 2, 3, this is the way that I'm going. And it took a lot of experience because, look, being straight up, my gallbladder surgery, a lot of my surgeries that were other non-epilepsy surgeries and injuries were from a lot of the side effects from medications. Hence, one reason why I took the risk of the surgery to get off them. I've been med free now for 7, 8 years now, and I don't miss it for nothing. Being straight up. And so just being able to daily indulge in like self-care, going to the gym, going to doing reformers Pilates, breath work, yoga, going out for nature walks, and even like in a few months this year, running retreats, wellness retreats. This is all part of what I've learned. Just again, like what I mentioned before, take away the goods and throw away the bads. And so this is what I've learned as you know, um, being able to put my own self together, what I've gathered from my own lived experiences, definitely going down the natural holistic, because who knows when the next lockdown will happen and all the shops and chemists are closed. Some of us go into hazard panic mode when they've run out of meds, when they've run out of it. And look, I hear you, just like what you're saying. We all have our own perspectives of life. And I've been there, done that, where I was just so scared of having a seizure if I missed my meds. Yet when I took them, I still had seizures. So it was a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Did it guarantee life? Well, for others, maybe. For me, no. Hence why I had to go with the last resort of surgery. And again, it was optional. However, with all my risks, everything, life is full of risks. Whether you do things or not, you're always going to have little, Tweety birds if you do this or that. But again, like what I've learned, that I'm grateful that I did take my own risk of the surgery and weaning off meds and going holistic since. Going holistic. And that's just learning again, reminding myself of self-care. Of course, when it comes to not just physical care, but even like what you were sharing about the communities, even what we call things. Even my question I asked, do I still have epilepsy? Well, all I can say is that it used to be a major topic for me that would just throb in my head over and over again because it was daily. Now it's more helped me to reflect on life, flip it over and see what can I take away from it and how can I pay it forward. And it does take, like how it was when I gave my TEDx talk in 2020, a bit of vulnerability to be able to open up because it could have been a traumatic thing back then. It could have been a very sensitive topic, like how it was me just battling going into the surgery room. I was just internally screaming and didn't want to do it. And I'm out of here. I need to cancel this. Just no, no, no. I might not see my family again to here I am. So it's a life is definitely, definitely a journey. I remember just, like what I shared during my TEDx talk that, it takes a lot of resilience to be able to get back up after you fall, whether it be physically, whether it be mentally, emotionally, in whatever ways, just, be strong and get back up again and keep going.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're co-creating a beautiful experience as you said, along these themes that's coming up very soon. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, as I've learned even from studies and all, what's the why of the event? So
Mm,
not just the what. So yes, we are running our Reconnect Women's Art and Yoga camp retreats. The why is, of course, there's a lot of us that are disconnected from life, from burnout, from overcommitments, from priorities, from juggling too many commitments and plates and all. And so it's a time to recharge. We've got a team, an amazing team, people that we'll be running some amazing activities, including doing sculpture art, doing what's also called Beautiful Me clay art mirrors, where the purpose of this activity is especially to remind ourselves of our beauty. Beauty is not just a physical experience, it's skin deep, it's within us, our beauty. And it's just something small but important that we need to remind ourselves of. Our beauty, our confidence, self worth, everything. It's always there. Art, going out into nature, collecting leaves and activities and doing different sculpture art to be able to take home as part of our takeaway treasures. Even those gift bags that we'll be giving out to clients and all. So this will be whole retreat as well as also yoga, breath work. This times that we just need grounding. We need the times when we need to be still because above and beyond the commotions of life, sometimes, the best thing to do is just to be still. Focus on nature to be able to what we call filling our kete, filling ourselves up with energy, with life and love. What we call in the Māori world aroha, love and all. And so that's overall the purpose of that weekend is to reconnect from a lot of us that are just working, whatever you call it, 9 to 5 or even sometimes at midnight, those of us that run our businesses. It's time to reconnect with ourselves, with other people, with nature and all. So it'll be a beautiful experience being held at Mount Smart, Queensland.
beautiful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Adele, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you, what does frequency mean to you? We've talked about the electrical phenomena that are the side effect of seizures. You know, we have electrical bodies. There's books about that. But what does frequency mean to you?
Like give it from a Te Ao Māori perspective and all.
Yeah,
So frequency, what we even like call the different levels of spirituality and all frequency, because as much as again we're very strong in our spiritual side of ourselves, it's just as strong as our physical selves. So frequency, energy, it's always important to in answering your question, to, be able to have positive frequency, positive energy, to be able to attract positive energies and all. So yeah, that's basically what I've learned. And it's still learning experiences and all, but that's just basically what I've learned from a Te Ao Māori perspective, is that it's levels of energy in which we give out, both release and also give back. Yes, we spoke about seizures, and sometimes that can even tend to like cause different frequencies and all. But overall, coming to, at least from my own journey and all, being able to, yeah, the types of energy levels and all. Yeah, so I have to say that's a unique topic in itself. And also it depends which perspective you're coming from, type mode. But again, from my Te Ao Māori lens, that's basically because we believe in what's called 7 levels of energy. The importance, the layers of being able to, be the different energies with, in English terms, I'll put it, positive values. We believe in such values and energies like manaakitanga. What that means is guardianship, guardianship, kotahitanga, being one, whakawhanaungatanga, everyone being a big family, because do you need to be blood family to be family? we don't agree on that. We believe that everyone can be family, can be one, can be united. And so going back to your question, frequencies and energies, it's all about the different levels of energy to be able to be what in another what's called whakatauki saying, aroha mai, aroha atu, give love to receive love type thing. And so that's, I know this may sound quite spiritual type thing, but overall what we believe when it comes to that term frequency. I can't say that there's like exact words that match the English terms because some things are beyond just one word. I'll just say. But again, just looking at from I'll call it broader view, broader lens, that we believe in the different levels of energy and overall what can help us to be what we call kotahitanga, to be one.
Awesome. Can we talk about the other all seven levels? Is that allowed?
Yeah, yeah, of course it's allowed. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a secret for anyone.
Okay. Oh,
Because
cool.
it's all a
Yeah.
matter of understanding it. Because
Yeah.
some people, we're just so used to our bubble of beliefs. So look, I will say that like with my, as I shared earlier, with my own learning challenges and all that I had during my epilepsy years, that used to discourage me from not being able to process learnings well and even learn my own language, my own spirituality, culture, things like that. And this is from, again, a cultural perspective. And I used to get very frustrated at myself that why can't I retain what I'm learning? And also I'm just briefly saying there. So post surgery, it's taken time for me to, well, I can learn now. Having retained, restored a lot of my old past learnings, I came to realize I'm not just a filter anymore, where I'm just learning things and it just goes into sift mode, what I used to class it as. And that's where I used to get very frustrated that I was very committed and keen. Yep, I'll learn and study and degrees one and certificates two and, diplomas three, yet a lot of my processing and information would have challenges. But putting that aside now, yeah, even I was back and forwards in New Zealand, basically I opened up and I studied a lot more about it. I will say though that the best learning has been hands-on when I'm there in the moment. So about 5 years ago, I even did my own trips with my son and family to what's called our marae, our land, our marae, our urupa, that's cemeteries, the rivers, the mountains. It's a bit, if you want to call it, an avatar journey. And that was very a hands-on. There was no official journey. And sometimes even my extended family, oh, who are you here to see? I said, I'm here to see me. I'm just here to breathe, to be here, to see and stand by my nana's urupa cemetery, and to just connect spiritually. Call it what you want, but that was my way of learning, to be able to connect, because there's a lot of us that are disconnected. We don't know our grandparents well. We don't know who went where to World War One or who lived in what country, etc. So some of us are quite out there, but we don't know who we are. That
Yeah.
identity crisis. And so
Yeah.
for me, especially feeling different, as I've mentioned before, a girl that would have seizures at school to, not being able to think well, etc., to being able to just be there, to be able to sit, to hug, to breathe, to feel the moment. As I said, it's felt. Language is felt. And so what we were talking about there about frequencies and all, I learned through studies at what's called Te Wānanga or Aotearoa, in other words, University of New Zealand, translated. I went to about 4 years of studies there and to learn a lot about this. And so with we're talking about here about the different frequencies and all, I've mentioned some of them, manaakitanga, kotahitanga. Also another term that I learned is rangatira. That's the Māori word for leadership. Leadership. Also, aroha is another big class as well. Love. Love is an energy frequency in itself. It's important. The layers and all. Wairua is another one. Māori word for spiritual, spirit world. And what else? What have I mentioned here? Yeah. That's right, whakawhanaungatanga. So basically being one as family, and it does not mean just blood family. I will respectfully say that nuclear families of children and mum and dad was a very European topic that got introduced. We believed that good old saying, it takes a village to raise a child, but that got, shunned out, and mum, dad, children, that's it. But at the end of the day, being respectfully saying that a lot of us are strangers to neighbours, to communities. We're very much fixated in our own bubbles, and it's,
Very unnatural, really.
yeah. Again, it was like we're out there to be a community, to be one, and you don't have to be, your siblings or whatever. No, and it's again, not all family are blood related. They're family in heart. That's being able to share values, to share frequency, to share energies, to feel aroha. That's basically again part of the realms of what we've used to learning. That goodness, I mean, back in long time ago, it was all, have you ever heard of like tamoko tattoos on the face? Yeah, so it wasn't just a decoration, it was what's called family history, whakapapa, meanings. That was the reason why leaders would have tamokos, so that when you look at them, you know where they're from, you know their river, you know their land. That's what each design represented. You know their energies, their frequencies, you know their role, etc. And that was the purpose, the readings, because we didn't depend on pens and papers or else today technology, hey Googles. It was all there right in front of you. And that also helped us to be very clued on, very intelligent, to be able to not just depending on other things and people to do it for us. It was very just common to be able to know where we're from, the land, the river, the place, everything. We knew our relatives. We could, say 100 relatives at the tip of our tongue. These days, can we? Can we share our great great grandparents' names, etc., etc.? It's just definitely time has changed. However, like what I was even saying about running our Reconnect art and yoga camp retreats, is that it's never too late to reconnect with especially yourself. And we know sometimes we go through that the midlife crisis. Who am I? That question, kawaio, who am I? I know who I am. I know my name, but who am I? Who am I? Yes, and we may even know our parents' names, but are we the same person that we was a decade ago? Are we, or was that me because of how I was brought up, learned behaviors? We know our own energies, our own frequencies that we bring up, knows when sometimes it's a time to make a big change, pivot in life. And it could mean sometimes undoing a lot of layers of what you're brought up with, even sometimes intergenerational.
Yep.
Those behaviors that were passed on, that needs to be broken. That needs to be changed. And it takes a lot of quiet courage, sharing from experience, because epilepsy is not the only thing that took over a lot of my life, I will share. But, sometimes as I'm sharing intergenerational traumas, intergenerational learned behaviors, I will just share, even like for the purpose of like our own people, Indigenous communities, even Aboriginal, Torres Strait, respects to everyone in this world, that such experiences like abuse, traumas, jail, unemployment, poverty, they are not traditions. They are learnt behaviours that unfortunately sometimes it was like what to turn to when you're going through troubles with other, whether it be the impacts of colonisation, respectfully sharing, whether it be the impacts, sometimes like what we've spoken about seizures and being criticised, you're weird, you're different, and that type of thing. It comes with a lot of molds and, layers of life. However, to be able to have the quiet courage to be able to break through and to be able to draw and come out as your own unique self. That's a very individual, experience and journey, because like what you're saying about your own, lens and perspective of like the epilepsy world, your own lived experiences, it's unique for you, just like how it's unique for me. And like even how what I say to my siblings, that, my own interpretation of being a Māori wahine is different to their own perspectives, and that's okay. Trying to again fit a circle into a square hole. Stop trying to fit where you don't. Just be uniquely you. And it's taken a lot of experience and, frustrations and trying to fit. But at the end of the day, maybe it's called a midlife crisis too. But sometimes it's called, you know what, blow that. Just be me. And it just takes time to be able to, yes, it may have taken brain surgery as well. But even just my other, activities around it to be able to undo layers. Even like you're saying there again about frequency, to embrace parts of me that have never been touched, because it was like at first a bit of a scary topic sometimes when I was younger. But it's a forever building thing, just discovering your own identity, because again, how will I be next year? How will I be, 5 years, etc., etc. It's a very learning experience. But yeah, whenever I'll be honest and say that being an advocate for our epilepsy community, for even in the mental health space, I know this is above and beyond the labels of life. Still, it just really, that of all experiences, that just gives me this urge, this desire, right, what can I do to help our community? It just gives me this little nudge. Sometimes I'll call it this little voice that says, you know what it's like. Remember when that was you? Remember, so what can you take away from your own experiences to be able to help communities? Not to the extent of burnout, because you've got to have boundaries, but to the extent of being realistic that this is what I know, this is what I can do. Hence giving my TEDx talk, to even again being part of a mental health innovation project right now and all. So it's
Mm,
I'm just
yeah.
currently just finishing off a program, 4 weeks away from finishing off a program, and we're just about to manufacture some products to give it a go and see how it can make a difference with people's mental health and understand a little bit more about what's going up there within our brains.
Yeah, awesome. That's really awesome. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
We hear it so many times, life is short. Life is short. And so to be able to achieve such a thing like discovering who you really are, your real authentic self that's unique for each of us, unique for you, unique for me, for all of us, then that's basically like one of the, best like uni graduations that you can ever get, is overall discovering who you really are. And in Te Ao Māori we say basically, ko wai o, who am I? It's to be able to, again, to discover your unique, authentic self.
Yes, and that's something that's mirrored by so many sages, spiritual teachers, channels. That truth in various iterations is echoed in across traditions, and so it's a reminder for us to come back to ourselves and to be curious in our own becoming in every moment.
Learning experience.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. Adele, it's been so wonderful listening more to your colossal life experiences and the orientation that you've taken, that it is something that's happened for you and been part of your becoming, and is something that informs how you live and be now. And I think that's incredibly inspiring. And yeah, I'm really grateful to have been able to chat with you today.
Thank you. As I shared, I could have gone a few decades ago, but here I am. And so for each of us, there's a purpose of why we're here. There's a purpose why we're taking a rest. Each breath, each second,